requires a degree or skill certification, and then skills, talents, abilities for the teaching assignment. But the current Rule 301 only states that content knowledge and pedagogy requirements will be set by the LEA. That's in lines 343 to 344. And there is no requirement whatsoever that the LEA require a bachelor's degree or skill certification. And let's be clear, because the board has turned complete control of licensing standards to the LEA for this LEA-specific license, we could expect 100 different licensing pathways, because each LEA will create its own requirement for the LEA-specific license with no common state standard. And without any state-established standards, it's puzzling to think on what basis the superintendent will approve an application for the LEA-specific license, which is required in lines 309 to 310, because the LEA must only adopt a policy which, quote, includes educator preparation and support. That's line 313. And there's simply no substance to such a requirement. And with no statewide standard, how will the board evaluate whether to renew an LEA-specific license, which is required in lines 330 to 331, when again, there might be many, many different LEA licensing pathways? It really appears that the board will have no real authority in vetting the LEA-specific license. Now, this is a concern because the board places no limits on how many LEA-specific licenses can be issued, and the board places no limits on how many times an LEA-specific license can be renewed. Therefore, the board is not setting any expectation that educators with the LEA-specific license ever achieve the qualifications of the professional license. You've created two completely different standards of licensure. So again, we ask the rule be amended to reinstate previous education and content knowledge requirements and to add minimal pedagogy requirements for the LEA-specific license to create consistency across the state. Second, the rule fails to place any limits on the LEA-specific license, as I just mentioned. And this, again, is a change from and a lower standard than the board previously required for the LEA-specific license, or I should say currently requires. In the rule R277503, subsection 8, for an LEA-specific license, the board currently requires that an LEA must, quote, demonstrate that other licensing routes for the applicant are untenable or unreasonable. But this language is not in the current rule. The removal of language that qualifies when an LEA-specific license is appropriate is a serious cause for concern. With no limit on the use of an LEA-specific license, what is to prevent that license from becoming routine or commonplace rather than being used for exceptional circumstances? Furthermore, you might recognize this document, which was dated August 2017 and described the new licensing proposal. This depicted a two-tier licensing structure with this third option at the bottom, the LEA-specific license, and actually references that it is to be used if other licensing routes are, quote, untenable or unreasonable. So it seems clear that the intent of the LEA-specific license was to maintain those limits, that it was to be used in those circumstances where it is untenable or unreasonable to pursue another licensing route. And we ask that the board reinstate this language so it's clear that the board's expectation is that preparation is best completed through the associate and professional license route, and the LEA-specific license is an option for unique circumstances, not to become commonplace. Third, the rule fails to create sufficient transparency for the LEA-specific license. It can be difficult for those of us who work on education policy to understand the details of licensing, but it's even more difficult for parents to understand the differences between associate, professional, and LEA-specific licenses and the impact on a child's learning unless there is significant transparency. Lines 366 to 373 require a school to, quote, prominently post information on a school website, including, one, if the school employs individuals with the LEA-specific license, 2, the percentage of each type of license held by educators, and 3, a link to the state educator lookup tool. What is missing in these requirements is seeing the actual policy. There is no requirement that an LEA post the policy which outlines the qualifications and criteria adopted by the LEA to employ someone with an LEA-specific license. So a parent could readily find information showing their school employs people with different licenses because the board has required reporting numbers. But a parent also needs context to understand the data they're seeing. Parents should not be left to wonder about the differences between licenses or left to search out on an LEA website what policies have been adopted. This is an extremely easy fix that would increase transparency for parents. So we ask that you add language to require that schools employing educators with an LEA-specific license simply post or link to the LEA policy that has been adopted, defining qualifications and criteria for the LEA-specific license. Finally, many other licensing rules will be revised over the next few months. You will be discussing educator preparation programs, mentoring requirements, licensing renewal requirements. Inconsistencies and concerns with the current rule will become clear as other rules intended to align with the framework in 301 are drafted. No definition for educator preparation program, for example. This was not initially a concern because it was thought we had a shared understanding that preparation program meant a university program. But as it's become clear that preparation program could be an LEA or Teach for America, a definition becomes essential. That is why it's critical that the board commit to revisiting this rule before it goes into effect in January 2020 to be sure there are no unintended consequences. So in conclusion, we ask that at the August 2018 board meeting, when you receive the report from this hearing, that the board adopt specific amendments along the lines that we have outlined in order to ensure appropriate safeguards for alternative licensure and to create greater transparency and clarity. And we also ask the board to develop this long-term plan to address teacher recruitment and retention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would it be possible to get you to send the text of that, your presentation to Lorraine?
Absolutely.
We'd appreciate that. It will be provided to the board. It will be included in the hearing record and provided to the board. Okay, has everyone who wanted to sign up for to give public comment had a chance to sign up on the sheet to do so? All right, I think what we will do at this point is we will turn to the individuals who'd like to make public comment. We will give 3 minutes apiece to those that have signed up, both in advance and here at the hearing today. So I'll call up the first person, then I'll call up a second person to be on deck so that we can keep this proceeding orderly. The first person who signed up is Vicki Olson. So she'll be up first, followed by Sarah Mackel will be up next. So, Lorraine, I said 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Vicki Olson. I'm a business teacher at Riverton High School. I've been teaching for 28 years. And so I have seen firsthand the effects of teachers coming in from the business world without teacher preparation programs and trying to teach in the classrooms. First of all, they don't last very long. They find it very difficult to teach. They have a wealth of knowledge, but they find it very difficult to give that knowledge to the students. And high school students become very frustrated because they can't understand the teacher, and word soon spreads with high school students that, hey, don't take a class from so-and-so, you'll hate it. And that's very frustrating as an elective course teacher, because if our numbers are down, then our classes get cut, and then our jobs get cut. So it is critical that we have teachers who are prepared. I know that as a business teacher, quite often you're referred to as what is called a singleton, meaning you're the only person in your building who teaches that class. So I have quite often gone to other high schools to help these teachers in trying to help them teach their classes, and I've noticed that they are very frustrated because they don't really have an idea of what they're doing, and they didn't have an idea of what they were doing beforehand. I know one of the most valuable classes that I had while I was doing my teacher prep program is that we had to spend a week in a classroom. And most of us did that during our Christmas break because we were done early. So we went and spent a week in a high school classroom early in our preparation program deciding, is this really what I want to do? They put us in the classroom for a week. We didn't really do anything other than observe, and if the teacher would allow, we could teach a class. But sometimes teachers who are coming in and think they want to teach maybe should be in a classroom for a week and just look and observe and see what's going on and think, do I really want to do this? So, yes, there are some people out there who have outstanding knowledge and could potentially be good teachers, but they need some preparation before they actually get into the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Sarah Mackel here? And after Sarah, it'll be Linda Petrell-Kim. Linda, if you want to come up and be waiting, that would be great.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Mackel, and I come today to speak as a concerned citizen, mother of 2 young daughters, and an educator. I am here to speak my concerns about the new educator licensing rules recently approved by the board. I have a unique perspective on education, working for over a decade as an elementary educator, as well as a novice teacher mentor for a multitude of pre-service and novice teachers. Today's classrooms lend themselves to unique demands, as teachers must not only teach the core curriculum and raise student learning outcomes, but also serve as nurses, therapists, advocates, and mentors to children from diverse and difficult backgrounds. Teachers must do all of this while withstanding intense pressure to perform and increase student achievement. This is why the new rules are so alarming to me. The support novice teachers need to be successful is clearly something that the board has overlooked. Even highly trained novices from college and university programs with methods placements and supervised student teaching experiences struggle profoundly in their first year. These highly trained novice teachers need a great deal of support, and they are often given the most difficult classes in the most at-risk schools. Teachers that have not been trained, such as ARL novice teachers, meet an even greater challenge as they lack basic teacher training in pedagogy and the experiences from a student teaching practicum with a master teacher. Yet the board seeks to decrease the requirements for an associative teaching license, relying upon an undetermined learning module and district supports to train people without experience. The licensing changes just passed by the board do little to address the teacher shortage. The rule changes bring an influx of undertrained and unqualified novice teachers into the classroom. In my opinion, this exacerbates the shortage by increasing the likelihood that they will leave the profession after a few years. Research shows that schools lose between $20,000 and $50,000 in development costs per teacher when teachers leave the profession. This decision to decrease the requirements to obtain a teaching license degrades the profession, and it is our children who will pay the price for this decision. Please increase teacher retention through increased funding for highly researched mentoring programs such as peer assistance and review and novice teacher residency programs. Decreasing the requirements to teach in Utah schools will only harm our students and the teaching profession as a whole. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Linda Petrell-Kim, and then Chris Jones will be up after that.
Good afternoon. My name is Linda Petrell-Kim. I am speaking as a concerned teacher, although I am also a concerned parent. In this rule, on line 73, it states that the requirements of the rule are to ensure that only highly qualified individuals enter into a licensure program, and that's determined by their academic success, their basic reading, writing, and math skills, and passing a pedagogical assessment. The requirements of an associate license are stated on lines 216 to 223, and that includes completing modules for classroom management instruction and special education law and instruction. And then your requirements from the LEA specific license on line 343 and 344 states that content knowledge and pedagogical requirements will be established by the LEA governing board. So if this board's goal is to ensure that only highly qualified applicants become teachers, that will not happen under this rule. The requirements for both an associate license and an LEA-specific license are completely different from each other and very different when you compare it to a candidate earning their certification through an accredited college or university. Candidates from a college or university are immersed in our teaching standards that we have to meet and are evaluated by yearly. This education and training not only promotes metacognitive thinking skills in these teacher candidates, but it gives them a deep understanding of pedagogy. This level of training cannot be mimicked by modules or whatever LEA governing board determines as sufficient. Consequently, educators with an associate license and our LEA-specific license, will be underprepared compared to an educator from a college or university setting. These teachers will be unprepared to modify lessons based on formative assessments. Will they even know what a formative assessment is? They will not be able to study student data and modify their pacing maps. They will not be able to differentiate instructions from your low learner to your high learner, to the child who learns better kinesthetically, to the child who learns better from learning and hearing versus visually seeing and manipulating. They will not be able to effectively collaborate because the people they're collaborating with will be too busy teaching them how to do their job. Most importantly, the lack of training these teachers will have will negatively impact students in their classroom for years. We have watched teachers who are unqualified leave a group of students, and that group of students is unprepared and behind for years to come. Your focus, if your focus is to decrease teacher turnover and increase teachers, and to encourage people to become teachers, then you need to fund schools. You need to fund classrooms. You need to fund supports. And you need to fund the things that children need. That's how you attack teacher turnover. That's how you attract people to the profession. And it is a profession that we are trained for. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris Jones, and then Dana Scholl.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here and listening to the concerns. I'm Christy Jones, and I'm speaking. Oh, sorry. No? Can you hear me? Well, thank you again. I'm Christy Jones speaking on my own behalf, and it's my position as a faculty member in a teacher prep program that informs my comments. My comments today will focus on the new licensing structure and specifically application to the educations of students with special needs. I'm grateful that the board's structure recognized the need for rigorous teacher preparation in the case of students with special needs, and thereby the associate and the LEA-specific licenses cannot be utilized, according to the structure, to teach special education. But there's a dangerous glitch in here. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, and maybe you all already know this, approximately two-thirds of students with special needs, so two-thirds of students with special needs, spend 80% or more of their time in school in general education classrooms. As such, these students will have teachers for 80+% of the day, every day, who the board has recognized as not adequately prepared to work with them. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so through the associate and the LEA-specific licenses. That glitch pertains to students who are already qualified for special services. Now I'd like to address students whose needs have not yet been identified. It typically falls on general educators, so the associate and the LEA and professional licenses, to recognize when a student might have special needs. General educators then refer cases to special educators. This process depends on general educators having expertise in recognizing when a struggle exists, documenting the details, administering appropriate assessments, designing interventions, monitoring progress of interventions, and potentially entering into the referral process with a thoroughly documented case study on the student in question. An unidentified module on basic special ed law and instruction is required for the associate license, not for the LEA specific. But even at that, I worry that the module won't entail courses that require practical experience working one-on-one with struggling students while these professional skills are being learned and under the guidance of veteran special educators and multiple university professors. To address these structural glitches while being mindful of the teacher shortage and the students' needs, My request is for the associate license to be named as an emergency learner's permit, requiring simultaneous enrollment in rigorous, well-mentored teacher preparation programs. And here's that, if anybody wants that study with the the statistics on how many students or special ed who qualify for special services are in the classrooms for what % of time. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Dana Scholl, followed by Curtis Benjamin.
Hi, thanks for being here and spending your time to listen to us. My name is Dana Scholl, and I'm speaking as a teacher in a high-needs Title I school. I believe that the new educator licensure rule will not help student achievement, at least at my school, unless some important changes are made. Among many issues, two of the most disturbing are the rule's lack of requirement for high-quality teacher training and a supervised internship experience. Lines 217 through 223 of the rule state that the training requirement for an associate license is successful completion of professional learning modules created or approved by the superintendent. And then the modules are specified, and some other people have talked about them. Under this rule, the instructor in the classroom could be someone who has no experience or expertise in teaching except for the 4 modules listed above, and the LEA license doesn't even require that. The rule contains no language defining what the professional learning modules will look like or require. What are the objectives? What should people know and be able to do at the end of each module? How will they demonstrate success, and who will determine what that looks like? This rule puts the onus on school districts or individual charter schools to take over the duties of university-level teacher training programs with these modules, which means manpower and resources that should be used for K through 12 students will continue to be shifted to teacher education, which in my school has already strained an under-resourced system. Furthermore, anyone could successfully complete the current online educator ethics module required for license renewal, as the multiple choice quiz at the end of the brief module provides the answers as one takes the quiz. The other 3 professional learning modules could look very similar to the current ethics module, and if so, the new licensing structure will do very little to prepare people to succeed as classroom teachers. Any new licensing rule needs to ensure that people who have aspirations to teach elementary school successfully complete rigorous courses in fundamental teaching practices without leaving a job to the already stretched resources of public school districts to provide it. Another essential component of all teacher education programs that both the current ARL APT structure and the proposed educator licensing rule neglect completely is a quality internship or student teaching experience before new teachers become responsible for their own classrooms. Practically every occupation in our modern world, especially occupations requiring a college degree, requires some form of internship before workers are expected or allowed to perform their jobs independently. In planning, preparing, providing, and assessing the outcomes of instruction, and in addressing
Please wrap up.
Addressing the many needs of students, teachers make hundreds of decisions every day that directly affect students' mental and physical health. So any rule that the board passes for licensure needs to include high-quality preparation, including relevant coursework and a closely supervised internship, and that should be required for any form of educator licensing. Thank you.
Thank you. Curtis Benjamin, and then Christina Schaub.
Thank you. I'm here to voice for 3 constituencies, I guess. I'm an educator advocate with the Utah Education Association and a former educator myself. I'm also a parent and a parent-in-law of teachers, and I'm also their son's grandpa. So, those 2 boys, Leo and Oliver, in fewer than 5 years will need, on day 1, teachers qualified in curriculum, pedagogy, and management. They'll deserve that, just like all of your kids and grandkids will. There, as Sarah mentioned, there's an equity issue here. Some classrooms may have that, and other classrooms may not. And why would we want to complicate things further by having easier pathways, such as an LEA-approved pathway that doesn't really address this need? Those two teachers I referenced, my daughter and my son-in-law, went through the university program and student teaching, and they're excellent teachers, but benefited also from mentoring within their schools. They and their peers will likely be the ones to shoulder mentoring teachers who come in through an academic pathway or LEA-approved license. So in essence, we will still depend on rigorous university preparation by extension, but not by experience. I don't know if that's fair or really effective. Going forward, what I've been seeing, I think what we've all been seeing recently, signals welcome to teachers, both in terms of the rhetoric we use to honor them as professionals, and also in the compensation that we've been seeing rising in district after district. I think that's how you get qualified teachers. I think that's what we're signaling, and I think we should build upon that. I think we've been hearing rhetorical and real support from the governor's office, from the legislature, from this body and our superintendent here. We ought to build on that. Easier pathways are contradictory, not complementary to what we're trying to do here. It signals an erosion, doesn't support professional status that welcomes would-be educators. Other less rigorous pathways, including LEA-specific licenses, could have provided a stopgap, I suppose, to get us through this emergency. But I would argue that the gap has been closed, or soon will be, and we should be considering more rigorous approaches to invite professionals into the classroom for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina Schaub and then Jeremy Reynoso.
Thank you for hearing me today. I'm already emotional. So I come today as a teacher who just finished my first year without any qualifications. I also come to you as a mother of 3 children, 1 who is on the autism spectrum, and 3 who have severe anxiety issues and are in treatment for trauma. I know I come from an upper class white family. I was educated at an Ivy League school, and I have amazing experiences from my education growing up. I left a very successful career because I wanted to be an educator. I was a great first-year teacher with little experience, but I knew that that was not enough for me to change the lives of the children that I would be entrusted to. When I started to do the math and realized that the children in my classroom were spending more time with me than their own parents, it really got me thinking about my own children who spend as much time with their teachers, more time with their teachers than they do with me. And I had a son who was below average on every single level and yet has an IQ to astound anyone. For 5 years he struggled in school. He's now going into 4th grade, and this year he was off the charts. He was more than 100% in every single thing. What made the difference? He has an incredible teacher. She has years of training. She went through a very rigorous program in our state, a teacher training, but that wasn't all. I have spoken with her personally, and we worked all through the year to get him to a place where he was functioning and doing so well. He's never had an IEP, and he might never need one. He has the skills under a qualified teacher to help him. And it's astounding to see a child thrive in that environment. I was in a classroom last year with children in a school, teaching with another teacher who doesn't even have a degree. And the 2 of us were struggling to figure out how these students, we were going to meet their needs. We didn't have resources in our school to meet them. And I didn't have the ability to say, like I do now, I'm in a full-time master's program right now, to say, oh my goodness, I recognize this. I know what I would do differently. I know that my approach needs to be diversified. I understand I can't have you sitting down the entire day behind your desk. That's not going to be helpful. That's not effective. I cannot, in good conscience and faith, support what's going on here right now because I can't be the educator I need to be. if I'm working with people who also don't support that level. And for children, my heart goes out to them. For every one of you who've ever been a parent or mentored any child in your neighborhood, make them your top priority. Make sure when we talk about special needs, as Christy mentioned, we are all special educators. I will be a full classroom teacher without perhaps qualifications for special ed, as I desire to go into the general and recognize I will be a special educator. I will have students with a multiple array of different needs that will be functioning in and working in my classroom and language abilities. So if you don't think that you are qualified to do that even with your own professionalism, how are we going to put teachers in there that don't have any of it? Thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy Reynoso and then Michael McDonough.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate the chance to speak my voice here, to add my voice to this conversation. I've been thinking a lot about these things for the past few months. I've kind of watched some of this and become more aware of what the work that is happening and the effort that everybody has put into making this useful for us. But I have to speak out and say a few things. When I started as a teacher just 3 years ago, I'm a new educator here in Salt Lake City. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I love teaching. I love teaching so much that I have 2 master's degrees now, and so I'm qualified as a highly qualified teacher. And yet, my first year of teaching, I crashed and burned. I felt like I was having a really hard time. By October, I looked at the back wall and I said, "Am I going to do this for the rest of my life?" And I had some serious doubts that my overconfident self usually does not have. And what was missing? Honestly, nothing was missing. I just had to fall back on what I had learned. And I did that. And every year since, I've improved. I feel like every year it's so much easier. And it's because of my preparation in my teacher prep programs and my experience. I even lengthened my teacher prep program a little bit longer for myself, believing that was what I needed to experience a student teaching for a longer time. And it helped. And it has helped, and it's made the huge difference. I think in lines of this program, talking about the associate educator license requirements in 216 to 223, that whole section, including the ethics, the classroom management, special education law, Utah Effective Teacher Standards, all those modules that are there, and that undefined board-approved ed program, those things are trying to replace, in a sense, or trying to substitute for what true pedagogy is, which is a practice and a reflection, a praxis, a learning experience for the educator, but most importantly, a well-informed educational experience for all students. I think that essentially this becomes an inequitable situation for all students across the board if we don't have this kind of solid pedagogy everywhere. It erodes our trust in the community that the community has in us, especially in schools who are underserved, and it destroys our reputation as professionals. So I also just want to quickly add that I think the requirements for the LEAs are also burdensome and not sustainable without a significant increase in LEA staff with these current rules. So thank you.
Thank you. Michael McDonough. Then he'll be followed by Marilee Coles-Ritchie.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Michael McDonough. I'm a special ed resource teacher at Woodstock Elementary in the Granite District. I want to talk to you about a couple of different equity issues that are raised by the disparity in teacher preparation. Chris Jones has already spoken to one of them, so I'll be brief. I teach students with handicaps for a small part of the day. My students spend most of the day in the regular classroom, and so it falls to the regular education teacher to implement the accommodations that they require to give them access to the general curriculum. So all teachers teach special ed. So all teachers have to be well prepared. to do what works for 85% of the kids in the regular classroom, and to differentiate in groups for the kids that are above and below level, and to individualize for the kids with specific needs. When a teacher's not well prepared, they have a hard time meeting those individual needs. So it's the kids with the greatest needs who suffer the most when we have unprepared teachers. Last week I was talking to a teacher who works at another school in our district, a school with a very high refugee population. She told me that 80% of the teachers in her school were provisional teachers in their first 3 years of teaching. 80% had mentors. So the highest need students, the refugee students who not only haven't had education in English but haven't had an experience with education at all, they're the kids that need the most expert teachers. Not the teachers who are the most expert in their subject area, but the people who are the most expert at teaching. And they are the most, they're the ones who are going to have the teachers with the least experience, because those are the schools with the most turnaround, the most turnover. The highest need students often have the least experienced teachers. It's important to those kids that when we put teachers into a classroom, those new teachers have good preparation for the challenges that they will face. We owe it to those students to make sure that we're giving them teachers who are as well prepared as they can be to meet the needs of all the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilee, and then Cindy Phillips.
Hi. I'm grateful to have the opportunity to address some of the issues that have been brought up. I've been really impressed with every single comment that has been made thus far by a variety of people, from teacher educators to newly prepared wanting to be teachers, to teachers in the field, to parents, special educators, and so forth. Every single comment has addressed some of the really important issues that are present in the current ruling. I'm speaking on my own behalf. I am a parent, and I'm also a teacher educator, and I've been a classroom teacher K through 12. I appreciate the comments about who are the children that will get the provisional teachers. Who will those be? And like has been said before, it's usually the districts that tend to need the most qualified and the best prepared teachers, but they're usually not the ones that get it. I would like to begin by providing a few comments from the June law and licensing meeting. I was not able to attend in person, but thanks to video, I was able to watch that video. I was impressed by two state leaders who expressed preference for hiring university-prepared teachers. Terry Shoemaker of the Utah Superintendents Association and the Utah School Boards Association explicitly stated, "Our preference has been and will continue to be to hire from the traditional teacher prep programs." Of course, there needs to be some flexibility, but I did like what Chris Jones talked about, that this is emergency. It's not something that could be used as a regular associate license. There should be real clear distinction. Also, Royce Van Tassel of the public charter schools added that most charters prefer to hire from university programs as well. At the same meeting, I was pleased that board member Terrell Warner wondered if we might look at teacher shortage and figure out how to have everybody university prepared in 10 years. She had great questions in recognition of the needs for teachers to be more prepared, not less. She suggested creating more incentives, such as loan forgiveness for those who would like to go into teacher education. And I would add, we need scholarships. What if we worked on the front end rather than the back end, as far as saying, hey, let's get some scholarships for people who want to go into a profession where they don't make a lot of money. But I think there is a number that would do it if they didn't have to pay a lot to go to the university programs and then not make much afterwards. There's also master's programs that could also be added to those who have another bachelor's degree but want that teacher preparation, the pedagogy that has been addressed. There's some really great research from Envision Utah, and I would encourage you to look at some of that. That's a number of amazing board members who are looking holistically at what we need for teachers. They found an alarming statistics that The new teachers, only a third are university prepared. And as we've heard, university prepared teachers are what are most wanted in the field because they're the most prepared to be able to meet all the needs we've talked about.
Please wrap up.
Sure. Twice as likely to leave the profession are those who are not coming from university prepared programs, twice as much to leave. So it's going to be just a cycle that's not going to be very effective if we don't get them prepared on the beginning, on the front end. So thanks so much for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. Cindy?
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak today. First of all, I want to say that I have a few observations. I applaud so many things about this particular licensure rule and have a few concerns. I come to you just representing myself as an LEA head at the Wileman School of Discovery, as well as a teacher who's beginning my 34th year in the classroom in secondary education. At WSD, we have had two wonderful teachers come out of psychology field and studio and graphic design and art to be teacher residents at our school this past year. They were both outstanding first-year teachers. I'd also like to observe that what I like about this particular licensure law is that is that local LEAs have a lot of control in management of that process. And I'm surprised, although I do understand perhaps why some people would mistrust that, but we have wonderful LEA heads out there, and Superintendent Terry Shoemaker's talked about this and the importance of allowing LEAs to have that control when they need it, even though every single one of us, as has been stated already, would prefer to have a traditionally trained teacher. That is not always something that is available. These are the things I love about this licensure rule. There is greater ease for out-of-state to in-state licensing process. We've never had that in rule before. This is wonderful because then we can leverage licensed teachers from other states into our state. It also embeds a review and appeal process that allows for an opportunity for customization and balance to the licensing process so that this body and previous committees can look at what kind of experience an individual has actually had before denial of a license. And I applaud that. That kind of flexibility promises to capture recent graduates in content areas, retiring and experienced individuals, and those who may be making a career shift mid-life. And I like the flexibility that it gives to LEAs for the LEA-specific license on when, how long, and that they need an individual like this. I believe that the special education module should be required for the LEA-specific license. That's an absolutely essential part of it, even though I do applaud the flexibility of that particular license. And already, LEAs are required to give extensive training in child find to all their staff each year. I also firmly believe that the LEA-specific license should require a bachelor's degree and the passing of a content knowledge praxis test. I'd like to point out just very quickly that the alternative often to a professional teacher in the past has simply been a long-term sub. So while the preference would be a teacher holding a professional license for any LEA, we have to remember what a step up it is to allow an LEA to capture someone with content knowledge who's invested in becoming a teacher as opposed to a long-term sub in that classroom.
Cindy.
Thank you. The last thing I'd like to say then is that I have to support all of my new teachers for those first several years because regardless of their training and what pathway to teaching they've taken, teaching's a hard job and you don't really prepare for it until you're in the classroom. And so I think one of the issues that we need to address is how to make sure that any new teacher coming from any pathway has very good mentors inside each LEA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's all the individuals who've signed up to give public comment today. Was there anyone who wanted to give public comment that wasn't able to sign up before the hearing? All right. At this time, then, we will conclude this portion of the public hearing. The board appreciates your input on this important issue. The board secretary and I, as the hearing officer, will assemble the complete hearing record for the board, which will be provided to board members for their consideration prior to its August 2nd board meeting. I want to remind you that the public has the opportunity to provide written comments for the board's consideration still. These written comments should be submitted to rule.comments@schools.utah.gov by Thursday, July 19th, 2018 at 4:00 p.m. And this hearing will now be adjourned.